Hello there, my silly gooses on the internet. In today's episode, we are going to create a little filter animation system using React. So it's going to be quite simple, but it looks really cool, so I wanted to show you. Yeah, we're going on this framer motion journey a little bit. So here we go. We just have like a list of cards, kind of like what we did in the previous tutorials with Svelte and React. But the cool part is once we click on these, see we get a cool animation. So this is basically a grid, a CSS grid. And once we click on these, it filters out all the movies based on their categories. Now I just added 3 buttons here, but you can do more. Also, this video is 30 FPS, so it's not going to look as smooth on the video as it's going to be on your device, unless you have some weird monitor that does 30 FPS, which in that case, I'm sorry for you, but that's okay. So let's move on. Okay, so I just did a create React app. If you don't know how to do that, I'm going to show you again. So open up the terminal, it's npx create React app, like that, and then you do whatever name you want this folder to be, and that's going to be it. So once you have that, we also are going to install npm install framer motion. So this is the animation package that we're going to use to achieve that. And that's that. So once that's done, cool. So it did an update. We're going to run npm start to open up the development of the servers. Here we go. So I'm going to copy this over. I still haven't switched it from Edge to Chrome, like the default browser, but anyway. So here we go. This is what we have. We have a nice clean project ready to go. Okay, so let's open up. Let's get rid of some files here. We'll probably keep most of the things here. We'll just go over to app.js because I do want to make this quite quick and easy. And we're just going to get rid of everything in here, and we're going to keep the main div, which we're going to call, just add a h1 in here. Let me do my formatting here, switch it over to React. Switch it over to React and then just add a h1 saying hello. Cool. I'm going to remove this logo thing because we don't need it and hit save. So let's take a look now. There we go. We have hello. Cool. Now it's centered in the middle. Whatever. It's all right. That's fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the same API we used in the previous tutorial. So if you don't know which one it is, it's this one. I'm just going to copy paste it over here. Now it's not going to work. So if you want to use this, let me just show you where to go to get it. So you can do movie database API. We watched Hot Tub Time Machine. That's why that popped up. Movie database API. So it's where is it? TMDB. So this is the one. So you have to sign up for it. Do a little sign up here. And once you do the little sign up, you're going to have, if you go over to settings here, so let's see, settings. You should have your API key somewhere down here. API, here we go. So there we go, that's the API key. And once you have that, you can head over to their docs, which is again somewhere here. You can do the movie DB API. There we go. So first one, that loads up the API docs. And then here we're gonna just search for something. You can do popular, so get popular movies. You can click on that and you can actually go over to try out here and just insert your API key in here, and then it automatically generates the full link for you. All right, and that's it. So here it is. Here, if you want to copy paste this over, this is it right here, just like that. And then you just replace this whole segment here with your API key. Okay, cool. Let's not waste too much time on that, but I have mine here. So basically what we want to do in the app.js here is just to grab those movies. So to do a fetch, what we need to do is just go up in here in the function API, and we're going to create a new function in here. So I'm going to call it fetch popular. Okay. So this, we're going to set it equal to a arrow function, which looks like that. Cool. So since we're getting some data from an external API, we're not going to have that information available for us instantly, right? It's not it depends on your internet connection, it depends on latency, etc., etc. So every time you're requesting something from an external API, you're gonna need to add async in here, okay? So async, and then here we're gonna just create a variable, and we're gonna add a wait, all right? So every time you're fetching some kind of data, you add a wait here. And then we're gonna use the fetch API. I'm not gonna bother with Axios now, just keeping it simple, real simple. That's not the focus of this video anyway. It's going to be just the animation. Okay, but the nice thing about async is it lets you write code that looks synchronous, you know, and not asynchronous. So without doing the whole then catch, if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's okay. Just keep it like this. It's super simple. Okay, so what this is going to do is it's going to fetch the popular movies. And once it's fetched, it's going to be available in this little variable that we called data or data, or dutty, depending who you ask. So finally, what we need to do is once we have this data is we need to convert it over to a format that's very easy to work with. So in this case, it's going to be JSON. Okay, so again, we're going to say await, and we're going to get the data and just add the JSON function at the end there, that method, function method. Okay, hit save. Lovely, lovely, perfect. So now what we need to do is basically store this data somewhere. So, okay, so let's store it somewhere. And let's also tell it when to run this. Because right now we just have a function here we basically gave it everything that it needs to do. It's just not running, okay? So basically what we want to do is when we access our page here, so when the page refreshes and the page starts loading up, we want to start fetching it already. So let's import a couple of things here. I'm going to say import, and we're going to call useEffect and also useState, okay, from React. Okay, so useEffect, basically you want to use it, in our case, we want to use it when the component gets rendered on the screen, okay? So if you write it out like this, if you just follow along a little bit with me, just say useEffect, and then you do an arrow function in here, curly brackets, and just say fetch popular, okay? And if we leave an empty pair of square brackets there, what this is basically gonna do is say, hey, when the component gets rendered out, run fetch popular, that's it. Now, and here this array basically is, you can have a piece of state, so if that piece of state gets updated, then this useEffect runs again. That's kind of the gist of it. Okay, so we're running this fetch popular. Now, what we need to do, again, is store that data somewhere. So up here, we're going to store it in a little piece of state. So I'm going to add const, call this popular. So again, you can imagine this is like a variable here. And then the second one here, set popular, is you'd use this to modify the data, so popular, okay? So we're going to set it equal to useState. And we're going to add an empty pair of square brackets because the data that we're getting back from this movie database is going to be an array of objects. Okay, so what we do here is go down here in the fetch popular, and all we need to do is say set popular, and we're going to set it equal to movie.results. Okay, that's where the list of the movies is. If we, I can show you if we do a console log out of movies. And let me also add movies here and hit save. And if we do an inspect element, go to console, as you can see, we get back this big object that has a page, a results, total pages, blah, blah, blah. But the results is what we're looking for, which has all the data. Okay, so that's what we're saving in the popular here. So set popular, movies results. Okay, cool. So again, with the useEffect, if I add popular in here, like this, popular, every time popular changes, so if we set popular somewhere else, then the useEffect is going to run again. But in our case now, we just want to run it once, have the data, and that's it. Cool. All right, so now that we have that going, what we can do is output the movie. So I'm not going to create a bunch of components because it's not really going to be too much to work with here. So I'm going to keep it simple and just mainly do it all in one file. If you want to separate that after, feel free to do it. I'm going to just create a div with called popular movies like that. Okay. There we go. And then here, I'm gonna do a popular dot map like that. I'm gonna map over each movie and then return. I'm gonna create one. I'm gonna create a movie component. Movie.js. There we go. So here I'm gonna keep this very simple. I'm gonna create a function called movie like that. I'm gonna return just a div here. Make sure to switch this over to React. Okay, just a simple div. And I'm gonna have a h2 here called title, and then we're gonna add an image, which is not gonna have a source yet. And that's it, super simple. And then I'm gonna export it, default movie. Okay, so we're creating a component that just returns us a div. And then we're exporting it so we can import it up here. So import movie from /movie. Okay, so basically we're mapping over each item in the array that we have here. You saw we had like 20 of them. And each item should return us a movie component. That's essentially what we're doing here. So return us a movie component. And if everything's all right and good, we should get back a bunch of titles here. Okay, so it goes over each one and renders out one of those movie divs. Perfect. Now gives us a little error here saying that we need a unique key prop. So whenever you're doing stuff like this, mapping over elements or lists in an array, it's going to ask you to add a key to the items. So super easy, just go here and add a key and set it equal to movie.id. Okay, and that's it. So if we check here, it has an ID attached to it. So we can just pass that down. And also what I'm gonna do is pass in movie down here. So movie like that. Cool, so now I can actually render out the images and the titles. So we can go here. Now to access all that data, so we're passing it down with props. Okay, so I'm passing down the data there. And now to access it in here, we just need to add a curly brackets and just add movie here. So now I can do curly brackets here and say movie.title. And here for the image source, I can do, now I cannot do movie.backdrop or whatever that is. We need to actually pre-append some URL to it. So it's https://image.tmdb.org/d/b/ and then you add the width that you want. I'm gonna choose 500. You can also do original plus movie.backdrop path, I believe it is, and hit save. Cool, and that's it. So let's see if that works. And look at that, we have our images. Because take a look, if we just do movie backdrop path, it's gonna return us this weird string, which is not an actual URL. So we have to do it that way. Okay, cool. So let's do a refresh, see if we got rid of the error, and we did. Awesome, so there we go. We have that going for us, which is nice. Okay, so let's style this up a little bit now. So let's go over to our index CSS. I'm just gonna add a bit of margin here. Do 5% and 20%. That's gonna be fine. Just kind of center it a little bit and add a bit of space on the top portion. And then in the app.css, we're basically gonna remove everything here like that and just grab the popular movies and just add a display grid to them. Okay, and then we can do grid template columns, repeat auto fit. This is a very popular one to achieve a, what is it called? A responsive grid. So min, max, 250px, and 1fr. 1fr basically means take up all the available space. So this is the minimum size it should be, and 1fr is stretching it out all the way. So it looks all broken now, which is all right, because we need to grab the image and tell it to fit to that grid size. So if we do an inspect element, I believe you can see this. Let me see if I can select the grid for you. So let's open this up, open app, popular movies. Here we go. Where is that thing? Oh, here we go. So if I click on the grid, how do I display this? Oh, I don't know. I don't know how to display this. Okay, anyway. I swear it just worked if you hovered over it. But what we need to do is just add a width of 100% to the image. Like that, and look at that, now it fits to it. And then I'm just gonna add a height of 30 VH to make them all kind of the same length. Cool, looks all stretched out and weird. So to fix that, we're gonna do an object fit of cover. And there we go, that's much better. And up here, I'm actually gonna add a grid column gap of 1 rem and grid row gap of 2 rem. And hit save. Okay, so column gap is this space here, row gap is this one here. Yay, that looks good. I'm gonna add a border radius of 1 rem to give it that nice fancy look to it. So that looks quite good. And also a margin bottom of 1 rem to give a little bit more space. Perfect. So that's that. That's all we need there. Let's grab the H2s and just make them super small. 0.8 rem. There we go. That's much better. Keep everything in line. I'm happy with that. Okay. Is there anything else I need? I don't think so. That's fine for now. Cool. So now let's see if we resize this. Look at that. It just does it on its own super nicely. Cool. Let's full screen this. So that's all done. Styling finalized. Now what we need to do is just add some buttons. So we're going to create another component for this. I'm going to call it filter. So new file, filter.js. All right. So we're going to import use effect here from React. Because we're going to use this in just a bit. But let's just create the HTML for it. So function filter. So again, essentially what I want is to have 3 buttons here. So I'm going to return a div called filter container. Let me switch this over to React again. So dot filter container, and this is going to hold the 3 buttons for us. So button. There we go. So I'm going to name this all. Again, I guess you could refactor this and make it like a drop down. If you don't want multiple buttons to show up, that's fine too. The logic is still going to apply, so it's going to be easy to change it to it. But I'm going to use buttons. So first one's going to be all. Let's do, what did I pick for the second one? Let's take a look here. Comedy and action. Okay, so comedy and action. Cool. And then we're going to export default filter. Okay. So let's bring this in our app again. So go up to the top, import filter from /filter. So I'm going to render this out. Oh, I messed up I uppercase the I, filter. There we go. So I'm going to render this out right above the popular movies. Filter. There we go. So hit save on that. And we should, look at that, it's done. We should have the 3 buttons here. Awesome. So we're going to style this up a bit as well. I'm going to copy paste this over because it's just a little styling if you're interested in it. So go over to app.css. And this is what it is. So pause the video, just add a bit of color to it and stuff and round it down. And what I did was also add the button.active, which is basically just switches the background to blue, because here we have the color on blue. So we're just basically doing the opposite of this too. Okay, cool. So save that and close it up. Okay, so how do we hook up the functionality to this? Well, essentially what I want to do is here where we're looping over, right? This popular, set popular here. So popular currently holds all of the movies for us. So what I want to do is make a new state that copies over everything from there, but it filters out the elements or the movies based on what I'm clicking on. So yeah, let's just do that. It's gonna make sense. So let's head over to app.js. So again, I'm gonna create a duplicate of this. So const, I'm gonna call this filtered, comma, set filtered, and set this equal to use state. Okay, because I never want to modify this one. I want to fetch it once and store it here, and then use another piece of state to kind of play around with. But if I ever want to access the original thing that I fetched, I have it here. Because if we only have this one and we mess around with it and we filter it out and then we update it, there's no way for me to go back to the original one unless I do another fetch request, which I don't want to do. You don't want to do multiple fetch requests if you already have the same data stored, just to save a bit of network usage, I guess. So, okay, so we created a duplicate here. And what I'm going to do is down here, I'm just going to, where we set the popular, I'm also going to do set filtered and do the same thing. So movies.results. Okay, so we have a copy of it. So if I do a console log, actually we can just check in the browser. If you want to install, there's a React DevTools extension, which is actually really good. I like it because it's just so easy to visualize what's going on in your application. So mine is here somewhere. Where are you? DevTools. So inspect and go over to components, app. So here we go. We have 3 pieces of state, actually 2 here. So that's the original one, and this one is the filtered one. So just a duplicate of it for now. I'm gonna keep this open just so you can see what we're gonna modify. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go over here to our filter, and I'm gonna pass down a couple of things that I need. So I'm gonna pass down the popular movies, set that equal to popular. So our original one. I'm gonna pass down the set filtered function, set that equal to set filtered. Okay, so this is just modifying the copy of it right now. And what else I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna create another piece of state called active genre, just so I know which button is active. So const active genre and set active genre. And I'm gonna set this equal to use state, and the default data that's gonna be is gonna be 0. So why is it 0? How do we get by this? Well, if we check out the data that we're getting back, so if we go over to our console and we do a, let me see if I can check it out here for you. So movie, here we go. So we can check out all the details that we got back. So adult, ID, and here we go. We have a genres list. And as you can see, it gives back a number for us. It doesn't say like comedy or blah, blah, blah. Because if it was like a string, then we would have added all here, right? We want to display all of them initially. But since there isn't any, it's just numbers, we're gonna need to use, yeah, numbers. So stupid. So what's 16 though? What's 35? Well, we have to go over to the movie database, unfortunately, and search up genre. And if you click on one of these, it's gonna tell you somewhere, I promise. If we go over to get movie list and do genre, let me see. Let me just copy over my API key. Let me see if this is the one. So just replace that. I'm gonna send the request. Let me just copy this over in the browser. So there we go. So this is how they define their genres. So 28 means action, 12 means adventure, 16. I just took it, so I just copy pasted these over, to be honest, just to keep it simple. Because it really depends what kind of API you're working with. But I just did 3 buttons. So since they don't have a 0 or an all button, I just added 0 there, and we're gonna kind of configure it ourselves But we're going to use comedy, which is 35, and action, which is, it's somewhere here, 28. Okay, so I'm just going to keep this open for now, just so you know. So initially I set it equal to 0, which is going to be all. Okay, so cool. So that's that. So let's also pass those two things down in here, because we want to attach them to the buttons. We want to change this piece of state in our filter down here. So that's why we got to send it down as well. So active genre is going to be equal to active genre, and also set active genre is equal to set active genre. Okay, so there we go. Now we have everything available in the filter. Cool, so let's head over there, and to access them, we can just do set active genre here. Make sure you add the curly brackets. There we go, and then active genre, set filtered, and also popular. Popular. Okay, so that's it. So what do I want to do? Well, when I click on all, I want the set active genre, so on click, let's add an on click equal to, I'm gonna run an arrow function in here. I want to set the active genre to 0. All right, so that's the default one anyway, so we don't need to do anything about it. But when we can just kind of copy paste this over here. So when we click on, where's the erroring out? Oh, I need the curly bracket. Let's copy that over. So when we click on comedy, we can look at this list here. So comedy is 35. So I want to set the active genre over to 35. And when we click on action, I want to set it to 28. Okay, so that's it. Yep. Let's go over to the codes. 28. And that's it. So let's hit save and see if that works. So head back over to the app and click on app, and there we go. So again, we have our popular, which we initially fetch. We have our duplicate over here, and then we have our active genre, which is set to default 0. So when we hit all, nothing happens. When we hit comedy, it changes to 35, and when we hit action, it changes to 28. Cool. So now what we need to do is grab this duplicate array of objects that we made here, and based on this number here, we have to filter out the movies. So it's going to be quite simple. So what we're going to do is use effect. So basically, we're going to go here and say use effect, add an empty arrow function, and here I'm not going to leave an empty array here. I'm going to add active genre. So basically what this means is run this function every time our active genre changes, which is basically every time we click these buttons, right? We're changing the active genre. So active genre. So in here, we'll just modify that state here, and then everything else is going to magically work. So what do we need to do? Well, if our active genre is equal to 0, so triple equal to 0, then I want to do set filtered equal to popular. All right, so basically don't do anything, just make sure it's the same as our original one. And then I'm going to return this function. So if I add a return here, nothing else is going to run in here. All right, so this is kind of like a check. And down here, we can add a const filtered. So just make a variable. What I'm going to do is grab the original, so popular, that one. I'm going to add dot filter. And in here, basically for each individual movie, what I want to do is say movie dot genre ID, IDs. So if we take a look here, so every movie has a genre IDs. I want to make sure that it contains one of those things. If it contains comedy or action. So if it contains 28 or 35. So if genre IDs, that includes the active genre. And that's that. And that's it. So hit save. And down here, I'm just going to say set filtered to the filtered variable that I have down here. And that's that. So let's give it a shot and see if it works. So if I hit comedy now, and look at that, it filtered it out. So if we open it up, we have 7 movies. And if we check, look, genre IDs, 35 is comedy. So it does work. It does include comedy. Perfect. And then we can just click through and see if it works. Action, boom, look at that. It updates and everything is all right. Now, there's one little problem here, is that we never use the set filtered state. We are always rendering out, we're basically doing a loop over the popular, which is the original, which never changes. So nothing is going to update here in our UI. So all we need to do is take this popular and change it to filtered and hit save. So there we go. And hit comedy now, and look at that. It filters it out nicely. Perfect. That's awesome. Another thing I want to do is also add like an active state to each one of these. So we can go over to filter. And all I'm going to do is go here and add a class name and just say, hey, if active genre triple equals to 0, then add the active class to it. Else, don't. And hit save. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. So I'm just going to copy paste it twice, 1 and 2. And here you just want to modify basically the number. So if it's 35, and down here if it's 28, and hit save. So let's take a look now. So look at that, it's highlighted. And now when we click, that also updates nicely. Perfect. So that's hooked up as well. Okay, now it's time to animate this. So it's going to be really simple. Let's head over to our filter. Let's see if we need anything in there. No, we don't. Let's see if we need anything in the movie. Where do we need it? I don't know. Okay, in our app. Cool. Go to the app. Let's import motion from Framer Motion. Okay, so if you want to animate something in Framer Motion, you basically got to replace the element, so whether it's a H1, a div, you got to pre-append this motion tag to it. So in our case, I want us to animate the grid. I want this whole thing to keep updating and animating when we filter these out. So I'm going to grab this popular movies down here and just do motion.div. That's it. Change this to motion.div. Cool, and hit save. So that's it. So now I can access things like animate. So I'm just going to show this really quickly. Set that equal to 2 curly braces in there. I'm just going to say Y 100. So look at that. Boom. It does a little animation as soon as the component gets rendered on the screen. But we don't want to do that. What we want to do is animate the layout of it. So basically I want to tell Framer Motion, hey, when the elements get removed from this grid, animate your way to make it look, just animate them in order and don't do a sudden jump. So all you need to do is just add layout there, really. And that's it. So if I click through this, it works, but it's kind of weird, as you can see. So to fix this weird stretching issue that's going on now, what we need to do is go to the child element and also add a layout to it. So let's head over to our movie. Right here, we're going to import motion from Framer Motion. Okay, and just replace this with motion.div and this with motion.div. Okay, so whenever you're experiencing that weird stretching issue, just go over to the child of that div and add a layout to it. And that's it, and hit save. So let's take a look now. And that's that, there we go, all done. So as you can see now, whenever you add this layout, it's really cool because it works with display flex as well. So it can animate all of these weird properties that you would normally wouldn't be able to. So if you have justify content center, you can do justify content space between. And if you have layout on it, it's gonna know how to animate those values. So it's a really cool thing that you just add to it and then it just does it on its own. Now there's a couple of things I wanna add is when I click on this, I don't want those elements to disappear all of a sudden, because it looks a bit, I mean, if you prefer it, if you like it like this, then hey, you're done. But if you don't, then you can keep following along. So just go to the movie. So each individual element, basically I want to tell them, hey, fade out and fade in when you get removed and when you get attached to the DOM. Because when we click on this, basically those elements get a display none and they get removed from the DOM. So what we can do, since we have this motion div on it, so next to the layout, we can also add a animate and set that equal to opacity of 1 and hit save. And we can also, so let's hit save and let me show you this. So as you can see, nothing happens really, because by default, it is going to have opacity 1. So what we can do is we can set the initial value of it to opacity 0. So now, before the elements actually get mounted to the DOM, they're going to start from opacity 0. So when I hit refresh, as you can see, they fade in. So that's good. The problem is they never fade out. So for that, we need exit. Opacity 0. Okay? So animate in, opacity 1, exit, opacity 0. Okay? Makes sense? Cool. Still doesn't work? Of course. Because why would it be that simple? What you need to also do is wrap this motion div. Oh, sorry, I did it in the wrong thing actually. Should have done it in the movie. So let's just copy and paste this over to here. My apologies. Should be here on each individual movie. And there we go. So fades in. So as you can see, it does fade in, but the fade out doesn't work. Okay, so we're halfway there. Fade in works, exit doesn't. So for exit, you basically need to add another component that frame motion comes with called animate presence, which literally does that. It's going to detect the element that's going to get removed from the DOM and it's going to animate it out. So exit here just doesn't work. You need to add a bit more faff to it, but that's all right. It's quite simple. So just go over to app.js and we're going to import framer motion here and comma. We're also going to import animate presence. And basically you just want to wrap the element that's going to exit and come in with this animate presence. So in our case is going to be this movie here, right? This is fading in and fading out and exiting and entering. So yeah, so just go here and just add an animate presence to it. Like that. Wrap it up and stay safe. Save. Cool. We can remove this weird thing that Prettier added, and that's going to be it. So let's take a look now. So look at that. It fades out, and the rest of them fade in. So there we go. That's pretty cool now, huh? It's a bit more visually obvious of what's going on here. So there we go. That's kind of the gist of it. You can play more around with it if you want to. I guess you could animate different properties here. You're not really stuck to opacity 0. You could do scaling and stuff like that. So animate in, I guess you can do from scale to scale 1. This might look very wacky, but I'm gonna try it. Let's do scale 0 here as the initial. So, I mean, it's weird, but yeah. And you can also change the duration of this if you want. So you can add a transition to this. I believe it was transition. And here you can define the duration. So 2 seconds. That's quite slow, isn't it? But yeah, you get the gist of it. So there we go. That's it. That's framer motion and animating a grid to get this cool sorting effect. So I really like it. All right. Hope you enjoyed this. Thank you so much for watching. Check out the courses down below in the description, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.